Property Unfiltered. Real investors, real stories, the good and the bad in property investing.
Well, g'day everyone, it's Liam Garman here, Managing Editor of Real Estate here at Momentum Media, the team that brings you the Property Unfiltered podcast. And I'm joined by my co-host, the one and only Simon Loo, founder of House Finder. Welcome. Well, good to see you in person. How are you going?
Good, man. I'm good. What can I say? You know, love the new setup. Looks really good.
Yeah.
By the way.
Well, all the fake plants are. That's the podcast.
No, they're not fake. They're real.
Oh,
they're real.
Yeah.
I ordered them myself.
Obviously.
But it's been really good, man. It's towards the end of the year now, and it's just a lot of things happening. You know, a lot of things trying to wrap up a few things. A lot of sort of functions, events, and all that kind of stuff to go. A little bit draining, but you know, not too many
Christmas parties.
Well, not yet. We're getting there.
Yeah.
That comes next. But I'm mentally and physically preparing myself.
Yeah, you got to detox in the lead up to it. Especially walking home, it's a nice balmy 32 degrees. Could stop off. It is Christmas. But enough about us preparing for our Christmas break. We have a guest on the podcast today. Simon, 100%. Take us away. Introduce him.
Yeah, Morgan Bushell. Yeah, we've been friends for a while now.
Yeah.
And in the past 3 or so years, we've been working together as well with some mutual clients. So Morgan's a mortgage broker. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So Morgan Bushell. I've been a mortgage broker for 3.5 years now, and prior to that, I used to work in one of Australia's major banks for about 10 years. And during that time in my corporate career, I've built a bit of a property portfolio as well. And along that journey, Simon and I actually met. So
you know some trade secrets from your banking days, or
give us the inside scoop.
Yeah, a bit of inside scoop.
Yeah, there's probably a little bit, and we can definitely unpack that a little bit more later. It's for me, it's much better on this side of the fence than it was in a corporate environment. So I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and it's the best part about what I do every day too.
So you worked for a major financial institution. You're investing in property. You got the property bug. Yep. You wanted more of it. You retrained to become a mortgage broker. What was that journey?
Yeah, so it's funny because going through banking and starting as broking, you kind of think, I know everything. This is easy. I know how to do a loan, but the hardest part was actually unlearning some of the things that I learnt when I was a banker. So, how the process is for each bank, there's their own little process, whereas I knew one bank inside out. So that, and then I guess being able to communicate with clients based on those processes and systems too. So it was a learning curve, but it's not like I had to learn absolutely everything from day one.
Of course. And today, I'm sorry, you're going to be put on the spot. You're our guinea pig. We're going to be learning from your successes, but more importantly, our mistakes. And this is something that I've said to our team here at Momentum Media a lot, and actually something that Simon and I were only talking about recently as well, which is on these podcasts, so often we come in and we talk about all of our successes. We talk about all the stuff that we've done right, but a lot of investors are sitting there saying, well, I already know that. I already know the low-hanging fruit of what to get right. Unfortunately, we're going to be actually looking through some of your mistakes today.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many people just championing all the great stuff they're doing, and I think it's a little bit tiring, to be honest. I mean, even myself, I talk about some of the great stuff that I've done and my clients have done, and the guests I've had on are done. But I think what really puts into perspective is, investing in property isn't just all roses and what else? I don't know.
Beers and Skittles.
Yeah, beers and Skittles, whatever it is. Anything that's good, right? So, it's really important to shed light on some of the mistakes that people do make, and more importantly, how investors learn from those mistakes and move forward in a much more, not only positive way, but maybe use it as motivation or fire, which is what I've noticed super successful investors tend to do. Is we all deal with crap that happens, adversity, whatever you want to call it. We all make mistakes, but coming out of that with even more juice to, so that in 10 years time, you look back and you go, you know what? I'm actually kind of glad I made those mistakes, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have had that fire to continue. So maybe we can just talk a little bit about, I don't know, some of the properties that you've bought that have done well, and also some of the ones that haven't done too well.
Yeah, sure. No, let's get into it. So Yeah, like kicking things off for me, I bought my first investment property in Wagga Wagga. So kind of random place, and even when I did buy all those years ago, I was actually working in the town at that point in my corporate career. So I was working in the agri-business division of the bank.
Right.
And I'd done a lot of self-educating and probably a little bit too much. Like I was kind of caught in the analysis paralysis side of things. And for me, I just got it in my head that where I was like working and like renting was a great place to buy. And I'd done all the research and kind of thought I'd done the right research too. But the property I ended up buying, it was cash flow positive, and basically that was the only good thing about it. Like I'd bought something that someone actually had already renovated, and like the market was doing nothing at the time.
Yeah.
So I mean today it's done relatively well, but for about 7 years it didn't move at all.
What do you boil that down to? What do you think was the reason why it kind of just stayed stagnant for so long? I
think the reason why is like there was not really like too much going on that was driving a lot of people to go live in that area, or there was not a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like since COVID, that property has actually gone up quite a lot in price with people going remote and moving to regional centres. But for the longest time, it kind of didn't do anything. And like that actually really, I guess, kind of put me in a situation where I thought if I want to move forward, I've got to like change my plan, because when I bought that, I was so focused on yield that I didn't really kind of think that, I need to buy a property that's in an area where it's going to grow quite a lot. So I was kind of blindsided by that a little bit. But
yeah, cool. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, I'm a pretty big champion of not focusing too much on regional areas. I mean, they're very hit and miss. Not saying they don't grow, because they actually do, but they're very volatile. Because basically what's in Wagga Wagga really?
Yeah.
Agriculture, right?
That's it, yeah.
So if you're like an accountant or something, you can't just rock up to Wagga tomorrow and get a high paying job like you would do in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth or Adelaide. So, it's something that I'm seeing is a growing trend where there are a lot of investors buying into regional towns, but I fear that, in the short term, a lot of people may get burnt. Especially when all these sort of mining and government projects and construction, building new hospitals and stuff like this.
When they start wrapping up.
Yeah, when they start wrapping up, or if something changes in the economy, the world, one small thing. I remember I was speaking to a real estate agent out in Tamworth, how during COVID, apparently Tamworth is known for oranges, farming oranges. I didn't know this. But during COVID, because they had all the export sort of, they couldn't export any of the stuff we had in Australia. They had to get rid of like $2 billion worth of oranges or something. And you can imagine for a town like Tamworth, like that would just cripple the town. So little things like that can happen, not little, but big things like that can happen that are out of your control, can really affect the performance of property at the end of the day. So that's one of the reasons why we stick to big cities. But I think you kind of continued that theme with the next one as well. Orange, actually.
Segue, yeah.
Did you plan that?
No, I didn't, actually. I didn't. Coincidental, but anyway, go on.
Well, it's funny because, I learned my lesson from that first one. And so, I put a bit of money into that. I bought that first one under a trust. So I had to do a 20% deposit. So I didn't have a lot of savings after that first property. And I was like, shit, I've got to, I guess, find a property where I can manufacture or just buy really well to keep going. And I didn't have much to kind of work with, but I also learnt that, I need to pick something that's going to grow. I can make it, manufacture it, and then have good cash flow. And I started, I guess, looking at properties that I could add value to. And I came across a very, very cheap property in a housing commission area of Orange, and it was a real cheap property. I bought it for $80,000. And this was one that had a lot of, issues with it. I had to renovate the entire property. You could, see the kitchen from the street because it had fire damage. And, I'd never even, lifted a paintbrush in my life. So I was well in over my head again.
You did this yourself?
to be fair, like I did actually get a bit of help with my dad because he was retired by then. But I also used like a builder to do all like the, I guess, structural things.
Yeah, but you're quite intimately involved throughout the process.
Oh yeah. Like I took a month off work at that time, and yeah, it was just a grind, like 16-hour days every day. Yeah, it was like kind of school of hard knocks, I guess you could say, and never worked so hard physically in my life. But a lot of things could have gone wrong with that property, but actually a lot went right. And yeah, I mean, we spent 50 grand on the renovation. So after that was all kind of done.
Yeah.
Like we had a really good valuation, and I actually made all my money back.
Nice.
As well as some equity to then go buy the next property. But yeah, it was definitely an experience. Like even during the renos, things went wrong too.
Yeah.
And yeah, like as you go through the process, you kind of question things too. You're like, oh, am I doing the right thing? Like, am I over my head? Have I overcapitalized? Stuff like that. But yeah, it was all.
That did quite well actually. You bought that for 80K in 2015, which is not even like a
That's
deposit
not even that long
now.
ago.
I know.
You can't buy like 10% deposit for a house now is about 100K.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then your current value at the moment is 450.
Yeah.
So your house, I mean, the property is more or less 5x'd, you know, in the space of about 10 years or so.
Yeah. Look.
You know, that's definitely a win, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's an awesome property. Like very cash flow positive. Yeah. Even straight after all the tools were down, like it was a really good val as well. But yeah, since then it's gone up quite a lot in value. So
Yeah, nice.
And you're still holding on to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
See, I mean, already in this story, it's pretty fantastic. In this story, you've kind of balanced out those in Wagga Wagga, and I mean, I almost feel like you're being a little bit too hard on yourself because Wagga Wagga was positive cash flow. So if you're say in the later years of your life and you're looking for something with a positive cash flow as you're moving into retirement and capital gains isn't your primary function, well, actually that does work for a certain investment strategy. And you've jumped from that, you've realized, well, actually, I'm not getting the fulfillment I need from this. I'm not really going to get my financial freedom I need from this. So I'm going to go into a more hands-on active strategy. And to be honest, with that, an $80,000 house, your risk wasn't huge if it went south. But you learnt some, I'm sure you would have learnt some pretty insane lessons from being that hands-on in a reno.
yeah, definitely. Like one of the things that I learnt from that exercise is like I knew no one in the town, like literally no one. So I had to interview a lot of like property managers, builders, anyone that kind of started to form that foundation of the team. And I quickly learnt that I needed to pick people who kind of had my interests at heart. And that was something that I was kind of able to like mentally note and apply for properties later. But
I think just on that note, that's the best way to get to know an area is to speak to locals. The local police station is the best. Like even if you're in a big city, you're researching a suburb, just go to the local police station. Obviously, when they're not doing important stuff.
Yeah.
But you can just
I'm
walk
sure
up and
they always are.
No, but when you go into the station, there's always, you know, people standing there, you know, just helping people that just walk in. You can just say, hey, where's the area that's the biggest problem in the suburb? You know, where's the area that's changing the most? What are they doing? They'll tell you straight up.
Is this something that you do when you're investing?
Yeah. So
right.
we, you know, our people on the ground, when we look at an area, we talk to locals, whether it is property managers or police officers, or even if you just go to the local shops, grab a coffee, just sit there and watch.
Yeah.
You know, watch the people, watch the, you know, don't be too judgy, but you know, you can see, get a feel for the general vibe of the area and, you know, what's improving and all that kind of stuff as well. I think that's really important that a lot of people tend to overlook, especially if you're buying in an area that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
Or if you're buying interstate, you know, through a third party or a buyer's agent or something, you know, make sure they're doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then you now evolved back into good old Logan.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. And that's kind of, I guess, when we sort of crossed paths around that time, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I discovered Logan, and even like back to what you said about interstate, like that for me was such a like mental hurdle to get over because I was like, oh, I can't drive there.
Yeah.
And it was like, and chatting to my broker at the time, he's like, you could just hop on a plane if you really wanted to. But then if you get a good property manager, yeah. But then if you get a good property manager, you don't actually have to go look at the property. They can just manage it for you. So I was like, that makes sense. But with that third property, so I really liked and enjoyed the renovating process, and I kind of wanted to rinse and repeat that, because from that second property, I realized, hey, if it's like a month's worth of work, whether I do it or I don't, it allows me to snowball and get into that next one much sooner. I kind of adopted that same methodology for this one as well. But for this one, it was a little bit different, because when coming back to the team aspects, I had a really good team, and if I'm being honest, the guy that I end up hiring as my builder, he was great at the beginning, under budget, on time, but it wasn't until kind of much later that some of the things and the handyman work that he did started to come back, and things were breaking, stuff wasn't working, and just the number of repairs that I got asked to kind of cover over, I think the 2-year period it just kept coming and it kept coming.
So you had a shonky builder.
I did, yeah. And it's kind of funny because I used them for a property later that we'll go through, but it was around that, it just kind of kept flowing, and it was almost around 1 year after the project was done, it just flooded in. So,
right. So this house is in Browns Plains, and you paid $255 for it in 2017, and now it's worth $740.
Wow. Yeah. So, that was the one after, and that was great, because I actually used a different builder for that one.
Oh, okay, cool. So sorry, I was just going down the list of properties that you still own. You still own Browns Plains? Or?
And you've got the list.
I thought we were talking about the one that I just sold or whatever. So, Browns Plains, different builder. It's fantastic.
Cool. Yeah.
But the dodgy one is the one that's
the one after. Okay.
Yeah, the one
Let's
after.
talk about that one then. So you got one in Kingston.
Yeah.
That you purchased in 2017 for $215.
Kingston ACT?
No, Kingston
Logan.
Logan.
Okay, we're still in the Logan story.
Kingston ACT for $215 would have been.
I was wondering. I'm all right.
Maybe 1967 or something. Kingston Logan.
Just go back in time.
And you ended up selling that just 3 years later in 2020 for $257.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a problem child.
That was a problem child, yeah. So same thing, it was a very cheap reno, but cheap by price, but cheap by quality too. I just had so many headaches with that property, and it was just one after the other. Whenever it rained, there was leaks. Whenever, almost every month, there was some sort of repair bill. And that particular property too, I had issues with tenants. One tenant completely trashed the place. It was a 5-figure repair bill.
Did you have insurance?
I actually did.
Okay.
But they didn't cover all of it, so I had to kind of cover a bit of that. But it was, that particular one was a very big learning for me, because if I'm being honest, I didn't interview multiple builders like I did when I was doing my first reno.
Yeah.
And I kind of rushed it because, I was keen to kind of keep things moving and going. But looking back on it, I wish I'd actually asked more questions and done more due diligence with the builder, because, I wanted to save money, and he was, the workmanship wasn't up to par with.
I was the same. When I first bought a bunch of properties in Logan, naturally things needed fixing. So I did the whole ring around, try and get trades and builders. And, for me, even back then, I was really sort of focused on the bottom line. So I was like, okay, cool, you can do it cheaper. Do it, all good, let's get going. I had one guy run off with $4,000 worth of deposit, never heard from him again.
Wow.
I had another guy that completely ruined the place. He repainted it, but he didn't prime any of it. I think he just used a spray gun and just sprayed over everything, whether it's cabinets or the walls and the ceilings and all that kind of stuff. So it's not a case of you get what you pay for, but I think it's a case of, just make sure they've got some kind of a reputation or some kind of review, or maybe they've been recommended by not just one person but multiple groups of people.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where if it stings you, that's one of the biggest things I see where people give up, you know, on property. And it's interesting because, not to make you feel bad about that particular property, but, you know, like myself and a bunch of investors back then as well, when we bought these houses in Logan, $250,000 each, they're all worth, you know, 700-800K now in some cases. And, you know, if you look back and go, okay, cool, all the crap that I had to deal with, the rubbish trades and, you know, losing a bit of money at the interim, really a drop in the ocean compared to what you could have experienced if you held on to it. So I think staying level-headed and just kind of expecting shit to go wrong, really. And then realizing that, okay, cool, you know, let's just move on. We don't need to make any drastic changes or anything like that. I mean, was that any kind of lessons that you learned there as well, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there was definitely an element of emotions, because it all kind of, all the problems that I had, especially with the two that I sold, they all kind of came up at the same time. And it was just like, I really felt that kind of pressure cash flow wise. And yeah, like looking back on it, I think I probably could have done a better job with interviewing the tradespeople, but then being real about it too. Like, and this is something I like say to clients, is you need to have strong enough buffers in place that when shit like that does happen, you can actually absorb it. And yeah, like I definitely kind of got caught up in that a little bit. So yeah, look, there is a little bit of regret about it, but I don't regret it at all. Looking back on it in hindsight, because yeah, it's been able to allow me to do other things, like starting my own business and stuff too. But,
yeah, I think that's a good attitude to have. Like whenever you face these things that inevitably will happen, it's just how you come out of it. You can sort of dwell on it and not progress. Or you can use that as like, okay, cool, the next few decisions I'm going to make is going to overshadow that problem. And it's just about having the right mindset, I think. So important.
Definitely. Like, I mean, the easiest thing to do would have been just to quit and like not buy or plan to buy any more properties. But yeah, like in the moment it definitely sucked, but no, like I don't want that to stop me or hold me back from growing. So
I think there are going to be a lot of listeners here who are looking for tradespeople at the moment, or who have gone on a similar journey that you've gone on. And it's a good, timely reminder that cutting corners, if you've got a buy, reno, hold strategy, not saying that you would sell a dodgy house, but if you're reminding yourself that I'm wanting to have this house in my family or in my trust for years and years and years to come, by cutting corners, I'm only causing myself a financial headache down the road. It's not actually beneficial to always just go for the cheapest. It might be great for you now that you save an extra few $1,000s, but down the road, that is a massive, massive change, especially when you're talking about things like leaks when it rains. That can structurally really destroy a house.
100%.
You did say something about interviewing tradespeople, and I'm going to ask a really dumb question, but for someone who has gone through that experience, and for our listeners who might be like, well, I'm actually going through this now, how do I know about the red flags? In interviewing tradespeople, what could you have done better? What questions did you wish you asked? What research did you wish you do?
Yeah, I mean, like the research part probably, like Simon mentioned, is actually asking for referrals, or if other people or groups of people had worked with the same builder, and if they'd done comparable kind of projects to mine. Like most of mine, apart from the first one, were kind of cosmetic ones to a degree. So I would have liked to have at least had the opportunity to ask those in hindsight. But apart from that, yeah, like you want to know, I guess, what their thoughts are when it comes to like using appliances or time frames, like budgets, whether they do fixed contracts or not. You know, what's, for example, do they do if like products aren't available? Like, do they kind of skimp out, or like how do they source their products, for example, like the appliances and whatnot? But yeah, it's more just, I guess, getting a better understanding of like how they're going to help you achieve your goal. And even though you say, hey, like sky's not the limit, but I also don't want to go for the cheap stuff too. So it's really kind of just asking all those questions as you go through the process with those builders.
The redundancy aspect is so important. That's something that I rarely hear people talking about. And I mean redundancy in the sense of like when you're sourcing a product. I mean, how many times throughout COVID did we hear those those nightmare stories of with the sunset clauses and everyone pulling out in the last couple of days, or because the price of timber or the price of this has gone up three times, now I can no longer afford it. And you've been an investor there waiting for this for 7-8 months, and then suddenly your investment's gone nowhere.
Yeah.
It's great questions to ask.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then you had another property that you sold, Kipper Ring as well, which is on the other side of Brisbane, in Moreton Bay.
That's right.
What happened with that one?
Yeah, so that one, unfortunately, I overcapitalized on that one. So, and it was in hindsight, it was a bit of an odd property because it was like a 2-bedroom house in a market where probably a 3-bedroom house would have been better to buy. But
They were very these little sort of weatherboard houses, very common up in the Moreton Bay area.
Yeah.
Because back then it was just like a beachy sort of seaside kind of like a village.
Yeah.
But now it's all gentrified to become, the new sort of middle class suburbia.
The spillover from Brisbane, because you're so close, right?
Yeah. So you see all these little. I've got one in Deegan, which is no, not Deegan, Boondall, which is a little bit further into Brizzy, and it's just like a little 2-bedroom workers' cottage.
Yeah.
You kind of think to yourself, how do these properties even exist in Brisbane? Because back in the day, maybe not anymore, but when you think Brisbane, you think like big old grand, those old sort of weatherboard houses, lots of land, lots of space, all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting those exist. But anyway, go on.
No, but it's funny you mentioned weatherboard because that's exactly what that property was too. And like, it was actually meant to be a really cosmetic reno. Like the only thing we were going to do is just kind of redo the kitchen. And yeah, when it got to painting the exterior, that's where the problem started. The weatherboard slats, they were just like, they had to sand them away to get rid of some of the, I don't know why actually they were sanding it away, come to think of it. But when it came to doing that and then repainting, the paint just wasn't settling on on it. So we actually had to replace a lot of the exterior.
Was this the same dodgy builder or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know why he sanded it away, to add an extra zero to make more something.
Yeah, probably.
But maybe legitimate as well.
So standing away the old paint.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like it was something to do with being able to, I guess, apply like new paint on the exterior because we wanted to paint it because it was like a kind of a very weird blue color.
Oh, like a turquoise or something.
Yeah, it was like turquoise. I'm like, no, I don't like that. So we wanted to like give a better street appeal. And yeah, like I said yes to it. I kind of regret saying yes, but we should have just kept it. But
Property Unfiltered therapy sessions. That's what this is, yeah.
There we go.
But anyway, yeah, look, same thing like the previous one he did. We got it turned in, it was great. But then, yeah, just I guess to begin with, it was overcapitalized. But then after the fact, same thing again. Like there were just lots of repair bills that kept coming up.
Yeah.
So it was kind of coupled with the other one. It just became too much. Yeah.
So you ended up selling that not long after, another 2 years, for basically the same price.
Yeah.
If there was one takeaway you'd take from those two mistakes or those two properties, what would it be?
Two. I think it's kind of what we touched on before, like with the team, in particular for me, the builder, like I should have done a lot more due diligence on that. I should have spoke to the other team members who I had in my team. Like I had great property managers and still do. But I should have relied on them a little bit more, spoken to people or investors who are buying in the same area a lot more. Like I just found this guy and I didn't really look for anyone else. I just thought, yeah, this guy's all right. And then the second part, kind of like what I mentioned before, is like once post-settlement and post-acquisition, having those buffers in place that, yeah, if something does break, which is just inevitable, you can actually absorb that. But for me, yeah, because of the lack of due diligence with the builder, like even though I may have had some very like small buffers, it was just so much that both had to go at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the biggest cost was, the fact that you, obviously, all those events leading up to the point of you selling it, just purely out of frustration, was the opportunity cost of not experiencing all that growth afterwards.
Yeah.
So from a more sort of macro level, I would say the biggest takeaway for me, and I've been through a lot of this kind of crap as well with my houses. You know, the biggest thing for me is just like, even just out of pure stubbornness, you know, just don't let go.
Yeah.
You know, mistakes are made, may cost a bit of money, whatever it takes to hold on to. And I wanted to bring up a point of maybe cash flow as well. Like when I talk about cash flow, it's not about making an extra $100 a week of positive cash flow. That's not going to make you wealthy.
Yeah.
But I think at least just ensuring whatever you have has enough cash flow to look after the majority of the holding costs, interest payments, council rates, PM fees.
Yeah.
Then you're never ever in a place where you're forced to sell it, right? Even if you are in between jobs, if you get another COVID lockdown or whatever. Honestly, like the biggest regrets, the biggest mistakes I see myself and other investors make is when they sell prematurely. Because houses don't go up every single year. They can go through 5 or 10 year periods of nothing and then double in value within 2 years.
Yeah.
So sometimes that waiting period is extremely important, and maybe not to sweat the small stuff as well. You know, like we all try and save a bit of money. Property managers are a very good example. You know, even now I still get people, this property manager's charge you 1% more than this property manager that you recommended, Simon. I'm like, the one that I recommended, if your tenant doesn't pay rent, if your tenant burns their house down, you're going to get all your money back. With a crappy property manager, you're going to lose it all.
Yeah.
So is that worth 1%? And 1% is like $6 a week, you know, of rent at the end of the day. Like, is it really worth it? So sometimes focusing on the bigger picture, I think, is also quite important.
Yeah.
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 Do you both have a property that you've sold prematurely that lingers on your mind?
Yeah, 100% I do. You know, there was one, and this is one of the reasons why I don't buy townhouses. You know, one of the very first properties I bought in Logan was a townhouse. If anyone knows Logan, there's tons of these sort of 3 beds in a complex where there's like a really, really shitty pool. And then they charge like $3,000-$4,000 or more a year worth of body corporate. So I bought it on paper with the yield at 8 or 9% when I bought it. And I thought, oh, wow, that's great. But the unit was only 155 when I bought it, right? So once you chuck in the body corp, the cash cash flow in the dollar amount was actually nothing. It was actually negative. So, you know, I waited 5, 6, 7 years just lingering on, and then I'm like, you know what, stuff it, I'm over it. I'll just sell it. 170 grand, I think I sold it for. And now, look, I mean, it's not a massive regret, but now they're worth, I don't know, 300-ish, something like that, 300-400. So I lost a bit of money there, but I think it's also what you do after you sell as well. So once I sold that, it kind of not only financially allowed me to buy more houses, but that subsequently did very well. But I think it's just shedding weight. You know, mentally, emotionally, you shed that weight so that you can focus on things that will give you more productivity, you know, or more growth. So that, you know, throughout the 10, 20, 30 year investing journey, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do stuff that's, that you thought, oh, you know, I wish I did something different there. But I think, again, like I said before, it's just about how you move on at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely.
So moving on now, like where are you up to? So you've got a few properties that have done very well. You've experienced some setbacks as well, but now you're currently refinancing. You know, getting on the train again to pick up.
Yeah, getting back on the horse, and
Yeah.
I'm actually working through this at the moment. So I've been able to extract about $500,000 in equity.
Nice. Okay.
And yeah, at the moment I'm looking for like
Who's your broker? Who's your broker?
Me.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, no, I'm going through that journey again and looking for that next property to buy. So that's
Nice.
where I'm at. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're looking at buying up to 3 to 5 houses now with
Yeah.
what you learnt.
Yeah.
What are you targeting?
Where do you mean, or what?
What, where? Just generally.
Yeah, like
Everyone get out your notebooks.
Yeah, no, it's I'm definitely looking for houses. I like land more, and yeah, I mean the learnings from the past. Like as much as I really actually just love renovating, I actually enjoy that. It's kind of therapeutic, weirdly. But I kind of looking more for a buy and hold
Yeah.
as opposed to buy, renovate, hold.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I'm looking for. As far as areas, I'm not completely sold yet. Before this, we were talking about where Simon's buying, and I'm kind of keen on Victoria, but I'm also not, completely ruling out some areas like WA and Queensland too. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
And you both have shared clients, am I right? You've all worked with similar people. Give us some insights into, because I mean, you're both bringing very unique perspectives from not only your day job but your investing history. You come together, share that expertise. Take us on a few journeys of how you've helped some of your clients, anonymizing it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got quite a few mutual clients, but a few have sort of come to mind in terms of ones that have done quite well. With some of the properties that we've bought. I'm not going to name specific names.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten permission from these guys whether we can talk about it. But a guy, we'll call him John. John the client.
Yeah.
Bought a 4-bed house in Logan area actually. This was back in 2022. We paid $505,000 for the house. And currently it's worth around $800,000. So that was a pretty good win.
Yeah.
Another client actually very recently bought a house in Armidale in WA. That was off market. And when was that? I think it was March or something like that. Or
Armidale. Yeah, it would have been around March time.
Yeah, March.
Yeah.
We paid $530 for it. 4-bed house, 850 square meters, and it's currently actually, you just did a val on it, didn't you?
Yeah.
What did it come back as?
So the valuation came in at 650.
There we go.
So 120.
120K
In a few months.
In a few months.
Yeah, it's insane.
I'd like to say it's all me, but there's got to be some element of how to get the finance out as well.
I just got the line.
No, but this is a good example of where like a really good mortgage broker, I think, that's very focused on growing portfolios and investment properties, not just getting a loan for your next sort of own occupy house is so important. Is because they kind of know which banks to use and what products each bank has to be able to extract that kind of equity, so that this particular client is going to use that 120K in the space of 6 or so months to buy the next one and the one after that and the one after that and so on. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to have Morgan on as well today is really just to as much as Morgan's found success and in property and also in his business, when you deal with these, when you've gone through the gauntlet of going through making money and losing money, I think that's when you can truly have what it takes to give real advice, right, to clients.
Yeah.
Because all too often now you see a lot of people just read about, property in books and it's very educational, and until you've been through it, I mean, how do you know you're going to deal with shonky builders, specifically about the sanding of the weatherboard, like those little things, you can't, you don't read about, right, at the end of the day. So I think having that sort of background has really helped our mutual clients, achieve what they're achieving.
Yeah.
And there's another client where they bought a 3-bedroom house in WA. That one was a little bit sooner. I think it was June time.
Yeah, I think it's about June.
And then now, we paid $650 for that, and now it's worth around about the $720 mark. So, it's a case of getting the right deal. Pretty much all these episodes, all I ever talk about is buying below market, buying off market bargains. That's where you make money.
Yeah.
But also having a good broker to be able to get that money out to move forward, I think is super important.
Yeah.
And this was something, Morgan, that you were talking about earlier, that you had your kind of like the A team surrounding you when you were doing these renos up in Brisbane, and almost like, well, why didn't I ask them for recommendations from the builder? But utilising that expertise, and it's a turn of phrase that I don't like using, but I think it's very reasonable to use, that if you view property as a get-rich-quick scheme, that's where you're going to fall into so many of these traps, right? Because you're going to cut the corners. You're not going to rely on advice from seasoned investors like the both of you who invest in your spare time, but you do have day jobs in the property industry, relying on that expertise. And if you're using it for that get-rich-quick scheme, that's when you're going to run into some real hurdles. This takes research, and we were talking about it before. You have to research your area, you have to research who you partner with, who you use, if you want to actually make a long-term strategy out of this. On that note of partnering with people that are in the know, that understand the industry a little bit more, you both bring your own expertise to property investors. For people that do want to know more, for our listeners who are maybe even just beginning to navigate their property investment journey, or goodness, even looking to rent-vest for the first time, how can they get in touch? How can you partner with them to help them on this journey, Simon?
Man, I think hopefully people have been listening to me for long enough to know how to get a hold of me, but my website, housefinder.com.au, or you can email me directly, simon@housefinder.com.au. I'm happy to talk to any clients and set up initial chats and all that kind of stuff. And Morgan, obviously.
Yeah, no, people can find me through my website as well, so fullcirclefinance.com.au. Best way to find me is through that way.
Yeah.
And we're happy to expand as well on, everything we talked about, really.
Yeah.
I spend my days now talking to clients about all sorts of things, whether it's bloody houses that we sold prematurely, or meth labs, or...
That's come up a few times in conversation today with you, Simon.
It's a recurring theme, unfortunately, that we're seeing and hearing a lot of. So
is it a liability if tenants go in and they get secondhand high off the walls?
It is. It depends on the tenant, I guess. But
some actually would pay extra for it.
Exactly.
Surprisingly, yeah.
But now there's all these laws about how you have to get the whole house basically, fully re-gutted and everything. It's pretty intense now, which is one of the reasons why it needs to be talked about a little bit more, maybe for another episode.
Oh, so you're not joking with meth labs? You've got to actually refit the whole thing.
Well, not meth labs only, but if whoever was living in it, was a user,
right,
it gets stuck in the walls, and they've done research and studies to show that it does make you sick.
Did you know this?
Similar to
No,
mold
I
and
had no
everything.
idea.
So what they do now is they get these guys out that specialize in testing the walls. And I've never had a test come back negative, because interestingly, it's the guys that test the walls that do the remediation work as well.
Yeah. Oh, funny how that works.
Not making any assumptions, but at the end of the day, I think it's about maybe getting a second opinion.
Just like grand 82 meth user.
Exactly. So yeah.
Oh, that is funny, because again, that's one of those things where your regular investor wouldn't think about, right?
Yeah.
But that would be a significant cost.
You have
for
to
people.
gut it, and insurance companies don't cover it.
Yeah, right.
Because they know about it. I mean, how much is it going to cost to replace all? Re-gyprock everything, repaint, all that kind of stuff. It's insane. So, yeah, just another piece of final due diligence, I guess, to end the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. To our listeners, do reach out. Do reach out to Simon or Morgan online. Go to their website, reach out, because there's no point doing this on your own. Partner with an A-team, get an A-team around you, do the research, know where to invest, know where that you're going to make long-term capital gains, positive returns. Reach out, make an A-team around you. Morgan, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
And my indefatigable co-host, Simon, it was good to see you.
Great to be here again.
And we'll be back shortly with another Property Unfiltered podcast. But until then, bye-bye.